Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome, living beneficiaries, to the show for living beneficiaries, the House of Hidalgo show on the Estate Radio Network. Prepare for the most educational 60 minutes on all of radio with your host, Rick Hidalgo. The House of Hidalgo show can be followed on Twitter or Facebook by searching House of Hidalgo. Find the show on the web at www.therockofsalem.org. Sign up for the newsletter, and while you're there, take the 5-question survey to let us know what you think. The Estate Radio Network is part of the Blog Talk Radio family of networks and can be found at www.blogtalkradio.com/South Dakota DP. Join the show now by chat or call 619-639-4605. Don't forget to dial 1 to get in the queue. Here's your host, Rick Hidalgo! Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Rick Hidalgo. I am the host of the show. That's the House of Hidalgo show here on Blog Talk Radio. We have another exceptional show for you tonight. You're going to particularly enjoy this one, especially those of you who are interested in the Back to the Land movement. We have my special guest tonight is an organic farmer, and we'll get to him in just 1 second. I just want to let you know that if you go to blogtalkradio.com/South Dakota DP, that's like double play, you can. That's the page where this show is being aired right now. And at the bottom of that page, there is a chat room. You can participate in that chat. Just log into the chat and ask your questions there, and I can certainly ask them to our guest. Otherwise, you could call in at 619-639-4605. So without any further ado, I want to introduce my special guest. My special guest is Paul Fonder. He is a organic farmer here in South Dakota. I believe he's over pretty close to the eastern line over by Minnesota. I'll ask him that in just a second here. But he was referred to me by one of our guests last week. That was Diane Reeves for GMOFreeusa.org. She was very, very high on his knowledge of GMOs, and tonight we're going to basically get an education on why GMOs are no good for us and why organic farming is the way of the future. So without any further ado, I'm going to bring in my special guest. Paul, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Well, we really appreciate you coming on tonight, Paul. Your organic farming is refreshing. It's great to hear that there's people out there that are trying to get back to the land and do it right. And, I wonder, could you maybe start tonight by just kind of going into maybe a little history as to why you chose organic farming to begin with?
Yes, I'd be happy to. It all kind of started back in 2003. We were just since we were conventional dairy farmers at the time, and the milk price, conventional milk price, is kind of always kind of lower than the organic price, and we were just having a hard time making it. On the conventional market, the milk price goes up, then it goes down, and we were also, we were kind of tired of using the chemicals, and so one of my cousins, he just happened to find out about organic dairying, and he found out that the organic dairy farmers get paid a higher price, and obviously, it's only fair that organic farmers get paid a higher price because it involves a little more work, and we have certification costs, stuff like that. And because we have to prove everything that we do is certified organic. That we can't cheat. You can't plant some GMOs. Just things like that. We get inspected yearly. So anyways, he found out about it, and we all got together. There's 4 other cousins that milk cows, and we kind of had a meeting, and we discussed about it, and we all had our concerns about, switching to organic. Obviously, like, one of them was, like, weeds, because we always sprayed, for weeds. We were never, like, real heavy into chemicals, but, we just sprayed for broadleaf, and the chemical that we used to spray for broadleaf is 2,4-D, which is actually a small component of Agent Orange. And, that's all we used. We never really sprayed much for grass. We always would cultivate our corn. So obviously, switching to organic wasn't a huge change for us, but we still had our concerns about the weeds, and if we couldn't control them good enough just with just strictly cultivating, and obviously for like the animals, we used to use antibiotics in our cows, and we used to give them some hormone shots and things like that when we were still conventional. And, we thought, what happens when cows get mastitis? And, and I don't know if any of your listeners know what mastitis is. It's an infection in the udder of the cow, and it's kind of, it doesn't feel too good for the cows when they have it. And usually the primary treatment was when we were conventional was just to treat it with organics, or there were some other products that we could use where you didn't have to dump the milk, but and like pneumonia and animal sickness. Like, we had concerns about how we were going to control that. And but on the other hand, we didn't want to keep going conventional because we were having a hard time making, and the milk price fluctuates so much with conventional, and we decided, well, if other people, if they can go, they can farm organically, then we can too. So we just decided to give it a try. And when you switch to organic farming, you have to, they call it transition period, where you have to gradually get the chemicals out of your soil. So it takes like 3 years to get the chemical residue out of your soil.
Wow.
And so for the first 3 years, you're just working at trying to get that out, and then after that 3rd year, that harvest that you take off, you can save that for organic. And then with the cows, it takes a little bit longer with the cows because they want you to. At the time when we switched, the 3rd year happened to be 2006, and at the time they had the NOP. It's called the National Organic National Organic Program, and the USDA started up this program back in, I think, in the mid-'90s, and they have a set of rules and regulations, and you can look this all up on the internet. You can go to USDA's website; they have it on there. And so we had to find out a way to, not, obviously, these crops, the 3rd year they were organic with the cows. The year that we switched in 2006, there was an old law that said you had to have your cows on 100% organic feed for 3 months. And then after, in 2007, they changed that, so you had to have your cows on organic feed for a whole year. So now for any conventional dairy farmer that wants to switch over, it'll take you 4 years. And so, anyways, in the fall of 2006, we finally got certified organic, and they were able to start coming and picking up milk and selling as organic. And it's just been, quite a learning experience, ever since then, learning about how to farm without chemicals, how to farm without using antibiotics and the hormones. And, and the amazing thing is, like, since we've switched, all of our fears that we thought were going to happen, they never came true. I mean, and it was just totally about getting back in tune with nature and what nature had already had, what was already there, and just like with the cows, it was just like letting the cows use their natural immune system, keeping their immune system healthy, and and preventing things from happening in the beginning. That's the whole basis of organic, dairy farming in itself is just it's preventative, just to keep it, the cows from getting sick in the beginning. And we've actually, since we've been organic, we've had less cases of cows getting sick, because getting rid of the chemicals and making sure the cows get healthy food. Obviously, we used to feed, the cows did get some GMOs in the beginning. We used to feed some soybean meal. Obviously, it was GMO, and we never, we only planted one crop ourselves that was actually GMO, because the soybean meal that we bought from a grain elevator. But the only crop that we ever planted on our farm that was GMO was some BT corn. It wasn't Roundup Ready. It was just BT corn. To my knowledge, that we've never had Roundup sprayed on our farm before. And because everybody knows about Roundup.
Yes.
You can go to any garden and buy Roundup. So that was the only crop that we planted that was genetically modified. We planted in one field. We didn't really like it. We didn't like it because the stalks, I don't know if people really realize this, but the stalks on this BT corn, they're really hard. And for your listeners that don't know what BT corn is, it stands for Bacillus thuringiensis. It's a natural bacteria that lives in the soil. And organic farmers use the stuff. It's a powder. They put it on a powder, and they could either spray it on their crops or they can put it on as a powder. And it's designed to help keep away the European corn borer. And if it's in the soil, it will help in defense against cutworms. And what Monsanto did is they took this Bacillus thuringiensis bacteria, and they took and they modified it, and they put it into the plant, so that now the plant produces this they call BT toxin. It produces it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all day long, the whole growing season long. And it's like I say, it's designed to keep corn borers and the rootworms from affecting it. And I guess I don't know if everybody knows what a GMO is. I don't know if I'll just go ahead and explain that to everybody what a GMO is in case they don't know.
Yeah, go ahead.
GMO stands for genetically modified organism, or like the Amish like to call it, God move over.
Yeah.
Because it's like you're playing God with the food.
Right.
It's primarily where they take foreign DNA from one species and they force it into the DNA of another species. The best example is a fish where there's a special fish that lives in the Arctic. It's called the flounder fish. And this fish lives in freezing cold water, but the fish never freezes. It has a special chemical that it produces to keep itself from freezing. And so they can take this gene from this particular fish and they could put it into a tomato. And so for all the tomato growers in Florida and California, if they didn't want to have to worry about frost, their tomatoes, they wouldn't freeze. And it sounds great and terrific. Well, that would never happen, but the process itself is like totally unnatural. It would never occur in nature itself. And basically what it is, it's like a cell invasion. The only things that normally invade cells are like viruses and bacteria. But anyways, I was getting ahead of myself there. But getting back to the farm, that was the only crop that we planted that was GMO, and the stalks. And most people don't realize that the stalks are they're extremely hard, and they're actually so hard that they can pop tractor tires sometimes, like implement tires, like on the equipment they're running out in the field. And
wow.
And yeah, they actually had to design some special equipment like John Deere, so that way it would prevent the stalks from popping the tires.
You would think that would be a sign.
Yeah, but it's not natural.
Yeah.
It's totally not natural. But most people don't really realize that. And I guess, not to go off about this, but there was, it was kind of not really an experiment, but there was, the year before we switched, or before we started thinking about going organic, one of my cousins, he let his dad graze his beef cattle in the corn stubble, and my cousins all, of course, planted non-GMO corn, but we had a neighbor right next to my cousin's field, and he had planted this Monsanto's BT Roundup Ready corn, and anyways, my uncle asked this guy if he could graze his cows out in there, so they fenced, the whole field is one, my cousin's non-GMO field and my neighbor's GMO field. And it was just kind of intriguing that the cows spent most of their time just, out in the non-GMO field eating on that. And I mean, when they literally licked that field clean. And they only went over there and ate on GMO corn stalks because it was the only thing that was left. And it was just amazing to see that they just didn't really like it. Of course, the stalks are hard. If you were a cow, you wouldn't want to chew on something that's so hard it can pop a cow tire or a tractor tire. Excuse me.
Yes.
And there's just not something. It's just not natural. It's just totally unnatural. And but yeah, I just thought that I would mention that it was kind of an interesting, just random thing that we saw and noticed. And at the time, I wish I would have documented it and photographed it, but it was kind of before I really got into it, researching it.
Sure. Hey, Paul, I do have a question for you.
Okay.
There's a that I live in South Dakota as well. I live over in this in between Mitchell and Sioux Falls, a little town called Salem.
Mm-hmm.
And there's I know a lot of farmers around here, and one of the things that they have difficulty with, a lot of them want to transition into into the non-GMO corn and non-GMO soy and so on and so forth, but they don't know where to get the seed. What are you using as far as seed?
The seed corn that we got is all been certified organic. There are different suppliers. Yeah, if you go to your typical, I'm sure everybody knows about Pioneer seed corn. It's owned by the chemical company DuPont. And then there's like DeKalb.
Right.
We get our seed corn from a seed company called Blue River Hybrid. They're out of Iowa. I can't remember the exact name of the town right offhand. That's one of them. There's another one that's called Foundation Seeds. I can't think of where that one's out of. And then another one that's called Albert Lee Seeds, which is out of Albert Lee, Minnesota. And I know there's some more. They're not coming to me right now, but I guess the best thing is to go on the internet and like Google these companies. They offer different varieties of corn. They can get non-GMO soybeans. You can get clover seed, barley. We've had pretty good luck with the companies that we've gotten our seed corn from. We used to get some of our seed corn from a company that's called Gold Country. They're headquartered out of Minnesota, and we had pretty good luck with this. But then back in 2006, Monsanto came in and bought out this company, and my uncle was a dealer for them, and right away, of course, they sent my uncle a letter saying that why they were discontinuing the organic line of seed corn, and you can imagine what they probably said.
Yeah. Intimidation.
Was better. Yeah. Complete intimidation. So there was obviously a big race back in 2007, 2008. All the chemical companies were trying. All the other ones were trying to compete with Monsanto, and so they were going in there and buying up all these seed companies quite rapidly because Monsanto was obviously had the competitive edge because these other companies like DuPont were getting concerned that Monsanto was going to have a monopoly over them, and they weren't going to get in on any of the goodies, if you want to call it that way. And
right.
And the common thing that some people, they say they have trouble with sometimes is finding non-GMO varieties, and you can get some non-GMO varieties from some of these companies, but they're very few. And if you can get them, they're like really old varieties, and so they're not really as competitive as like the newer varieties of GMO corn. Maybe they don't yield as good as because they haven't been had an extensive breeding program on them to get the genetics there. And I should explain too to your listeners what like the difference. Like there's hybrid corn, and then there's like called open pollinated corn. And some people get this confused where they think hybrid corn is somehow genetically modified. Hybrid corn is not genetically modified. It has not had foreign DNA inserted into it. Hybrid corn is primarily produced by it's inbreeding, where they take like the parent plant and they keep inbreeding it until they finally get hybrid corn. Is basically what it I'm not sure on the exact details, but it primarily has to deal with that. And then the open pollinated corn is what farmers were used for years before they came out with hybrid corn. And the difference with hybrid corn is you can't save the seed, or any hybrid seed, you can't save it because the offspring isn't viable. It will put out an ear, but it will just be really small, and the corn plant doesn't go really tall. That's just the process of hybrid, but it has nothing to do with genetic engineering at all. It's just still a natural process of conventional breeding. It just, produces a hybrid plant.
Right. Maybe I should ask this way. Are there good sources for heirloom seed out there, or open pollinated seed that are not obviously not there is good places where you can buy some of the open pollinated corn. As a matter of fact, I had a neighbor that planted some last year, and the open pollinated corn isn't the stalk sometimes can be a little bit weaker. It doesn't stand up as good in wind. It just maybe depends on the variety. It might have been a particular variety that he had. They can yield. If you've got good soil fertility, it can yield. Probably as good as hybrid corn as you get your soil fertility there.
But it's a pretty good there's different selections for farmers to get it if they want to get it.
Right. Same thing, just to be that in a server open poly, non-GMO corn.
Could you repeat the question again?
So what you're saying is to find it, you just on the internet and you do a search for open pollinated non-GMO corn.
Yeah. You can go on the internet and search that. They'll have a phone number on there. If any people want to contact these places, they should be able to get a hold of them. One of the things that we do every year is we do like an early order. Obviously, you get a discount on your seed corn if you do an early order, because obviously the seed company likes that way, because that way they know what they have for inventory. They know what they can, put out there, and obviously the farmer then can get the best, highest yielding variety of corn, that's left, because usually the good corn goes first, and they have different types of varieties of corn. Usually it comes like a different number. They number all their varieties, and some varieties are good. Like one of the things that we do is we chop our corn for corn silage in the fall. We don't chop all of it; we chop some of it, and then some of the corn is good for like what we call picking corn. It's good for combining, and there's just different things that they breed into it. They get these better traits. Some are higher yielding, some are more resilient to, like they have better stalk string. Some are more leafy. They have all these different options that you can get. And like I say, this has all been done through natural, conventional breeding selection. And actually, like Montana, when they do theirs, they use the same conventional breeding methods. They have like a sophisticated computer program that they use to develop, to pick out the best traits, the yielding traits, and then when they get that variety that they want, through conventional plant breeding, then they take and they genetically engineer it to produce this BT or make it Roundup ready. And in the process of genetic engineering, they actually destroy some of the yield potential. They take away that yield potential right away when they genetically engineer it, because it disrupts some of the mechanisms inside the plant itself that actually could have made it yield even higher. So there is obviously a downside to genetically engineering crops. It's not just about making it resistant to weeds or pest, resistant.
Right. Well, of course, some of their promotional materials actually farmers that they're going to have better yield using GM corn.
Yes, they do advertise that, and as having higher yield. In ideal condition, some of their crops can yield more. It just depends on, like for us, it depends on like your row size, or your row width, or it depends on, like weed pressure. There's a lot of different variables that can affect farmers' yields, even if you're conventional or if you're organic. Last year, everybody remembers the drought that we had. And there was actually, through word of mouth, I heard about some organic farmers that actually had higher yielding corn than their conventional neighbors, because the soil in the organic farmers actually retained moisture better, and so the corn had more access to moisture than the conventional farmers, because their soil, didn't retain the moisture as well, and so some of these farmers, conventional farmers, actually had lower yields than their organic neighbors.
Sure.
So that there's different like variables there that can affect yield. And the biggest thing that I've noticed, like initially when they came out with these crops back in '96, they advertised them as being higher yielding and that yields are going to keep going up. I don't actually believe that the yields are, I think they've sort of stabilized, because, nobody in my area averages, 200 bushels. They might be close to it. Some farmers do, but I don't think anybody out here averages 200 bushels. And, by now you think that farmers should be averaging, 300 or even 400 bushels by now. If they've been going, is like they advertise like to be going up, and I just think that the soil is getting, depleted more and more, and that's having some effect on the yield of these GMO crops. And
right.
It's not, the soil is just, this Roundup isn't really good for the soil in general. Most people probably don't know this, but the main and they probably don't know the history of Roundup itself and how it all got started. I'll just go in a little bit about that. I guess how Roundup got started was I'll talk about the main ingredient. The active ingredient in Roundup is called glyphosate. And originally, glyphosate was originally used by a company back in the 1960s. This company was called the Stafford Company. And believe it or not, they used this glyphosate to clean mineral stains out of dishwashers. And you're probably wondering why. Because glyphosate itself it's a broad spectrum chelator. That means it bonds onto minerals like iron and zinc and copper, manganese. It really grabs on these things. So when you spray it in your dishwasher, it would pull the minerals together and then they would flake off. And
wow.
It was just purely by accident. Someone just happened to spill it on weeds, and it killed the weeds. And, of course, I don't know how exactly, but Monsanto found out about it. And so in the early 70s, they bought up the rights to this, and then, of course, they reformulated it into Roundup and patented it. And so when you spray, so that's kind of how Roundup kills weeds. There's other ingredients in Roundup. I'm not sure what they all are, and Monsanto obviously doesn't list them all. Obviously, even the EPA doesn't even know about all these ingredients. That's kind of surprising too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess primarily how Roundup kills the weed is basically the glyphosate. Since it's, I guess the easy way to say it gives the weed a good dose of AIDS is what it does. It destroys the plant's immune system, its ability, to defend itself against plant diseases, and of course, the Roundup Ready crops, they're made to resist this, and how they figured all this out and make the crops become resistant to Roundup is it just so happened to be at one of the Monsanto Roundup production facilities. They happened to notice in this pond that was highly contaminated with Roundup. They happened to notice there was this kind of this sludge growing in there, and it was thriving in the contaminated water, and obviously it was a form of bacteria, and it just loved the stuff. And so somebody got the idea. They said, well, how about we just take the DNA that makes that bacteria thrive in there, and how about we just put it into the plant, and we'll spray the plant with Roundup, and the plant won't die. And it just sounds like totally miraculous, and I remember back when Roundup Ready Crops first came out back in '96, and I was just like, I heard about that they're going to make crops resistant to Roundup, and Roundup is a broad spectrum herbicide. It kills everything. And I thought, wow, how did they do that? That's totally amazing. You could go out and spray, your crops with Roundup, and it kills everything but the crops. It just sounds truly miraculous.
Right.
But it's like, like I'm saying, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
Yeah.
But the primary problem with Roundup is, since it's a broad spectrum chelator, it's pulling in all these minerals, and you spray it on your ground. It's tying up all these minerals, locking them up, some of them permanently, and some of them, it makes them totally unavailable to the plant. Even the genetically modified plant can't take these up. Like when they spray Roundup on the plant, it works in a systemic way. That means it moves through the plant. It just takes a small amount to actually get on the plant. It's a very small amount that gets in each plant. I don't know. It's like maybe like it's like a tiny amount, and it gets drawn into the plant. And this Roundup, or or glyphosate, it gets pulled through the whole plant. The plant takes it in, and then the glyphosate goes to all the growing points of the plant. And of course, what are all the growing points? The root system. It goes down into the roots. It goes into the tassel, and it goes into the ear. The ear that people eventually eat in food. That's where it gets drawn to them points. And the significance of it going into the root is that it forms like a barrier in the root, and it prevents the plant from taking in all these important trace elements like copper, zinc, iron, manganese. And so these crops actually end up becoming deficient. They're not as nutritious as the non-GMO crops because of this.
Right. Well, I'll tell you what, Paul, we're going to take a quick little 2-minute break, so if you want to go, get a glass of water and refresh your throat here, we'll come back in about 2 minutes.
Okay.
Do you have hopes, dreams, and goals, but don't know how to reach them? Do you wonder how you could do differently to achieve greater success at home or at work? Do you feel like something is holding you back from enjoying your life to the fullest? Are you fed up with status quo and ready for real and lasting life change? Are you wanting to start a business or expand an existing one? If the answer to any of these questions is yes, then you are ready for life coaching with Mr. Attitude. Mr. Attitude will stretch and grow you and take your life to a whole new level of success by equipping you with the tools to help you to accomplish more in less time, get and keep your priorities in line, gain greater happiness and joy, face your fears, plan for success, be more assertive and confident, overcome negative stress, deal with negative thinking, set goals you will achieve, and more. Mr. Attitude specializes in results producing. Life strategy coaching for the personal side of your life, small business coaching for those who want to start a small business or build a stronger small business, train the trainer coaching for those who aspire to become a motivational professional speaker. Call today and reserve your appointment with greater success. 605-450-1955. That's 605-450-1955. Or email Bob at MrAttitudespeaks.com. That's MrAttitudespeaks.com. Mr. Attitude is committed to your success. Do you remember the series of the 70s and 80s? The Dukes of Hazzard, I Dream of Jeannie, Mork and Mindy, Hogan's Heroes, the list goes on and on and on. Of course you do. Why? Because they were family-friendly shows. What's the one place you can go on the internet to find them? www.retroshowsarbetter.com. go by my Ace store and get yourself some popcorn and a movie and meet me there. All right, this is Rick Hidalgo. This, of course, is the House of Hidalgo show. I am on today with organic farmer and GMO self-studier, Paul Fonder. We discussed in the first half of the program a lot of information concerning GMOs, concerning organic farming. He shared with us really matters from the heart as far as how he got started and what led him down the road that he's on now. And to start off the second half of the program, I wonder, I'd like to ask you, Paul, to maybe share with my listeners some of the different studies that you did, that you were sharing a corn study that you did where you put out a couple cobs of corn, one GMO, one non-GMO in the barn. Could you share that?
Yes, yeah, I'll be happy to share that. There was we have a little, I guess more like a little garden shed, and I just wanted to see, because I had heard about someone else that had done a study. It was kind of an accidental study that they did, and they had two bags of corn, one non-GMO and one GMO, and of course, they put it in the garage and they forgot about it because, they were originally going to do a squirrel experiment. And anyways, the mice, and in this particular study, just ate the whole bag of non-GMO corn and left the other bag, and, I read about it in there, and it's kind of intriguing. But, I want to see it for myself, so I thought, I want to try this same experiment with the mice. And so it was back in early April. I just, put 2 ears of corn and stuck a, piece of paper that wrote one, obviously the corn it's organic, and then the other one wrote GMO, and I photographed it, and I documented a before picture, and then I kind of came in there and I checked on it, like a couple times in the first few weeks, and there wasn't any evidence that, mice had eaten out anything in there, so I kind of thought, well, I'll forget about it for now, maybe later. I got busy with spring farm work and totally forgot about it, and just last week I just came in there to get a garden tool, and I looked back and thought, holy cow, the mice, ate up pretty much all of the organic corn, and they didn't even touch the GMO corn. They didn't even take a bite out of it or anything. Just sit there and right where it was, and the organic corn was kind of turned sideways, like they'd be climbing up on it, kind of pull the kernels off and eat on it. And I inspected the kernel or the GMO corn. Looked at it closely, and there was no bite marks or anything on it. And
wow.
For whatever reason, they just did not want to eat it. And rodents still eat just about anything. They'll chew through insulation, they'll chew on wood and cardboard and paper.
Oh yeah.
And they just would not touch that GMO corn for whatever reason. They just didn't want to touch it. And people could think what they want to think. If they want to think, maybe it was the variety of corn that was different. It still had every opportunity to eat on that corn whenever it wanted to, and it didn't eat on it. And then I guess I'll talk too about that squirrel. Last fall, I did a squirrel experiment, and this experiment that I did, I posted some pictures on Facebook and Twitter, and then this spring, this one particular picture went viral on Facebook, and it got like thousands of likes, and it was shared thousands of times. And that was just like, that one picture there was like one of 5 experiments that I did. And in that experiment, I used 5 different varieties of organic corn, 5 different varieties of GMO corn. They all came from different fields, different soil types. And every time the squirrel always preferred the organic corn over the GMO corn. And, in this particular experiment that I noticed, the squirrels would kind of like to start with the first two experiments, the squirrels would kind of like taste test, they'd taste test the GMO corn, they'd nibble on it a little bit, and then they didn't like it, and then they'd go over and eat on the organic corn, they'd eat the whole ear down. They'd strip the ear down. And I just thought that was fascinating, because the squirrels would do a taste test, where the mice, they don't even do that. They don't even touch it. And I don't know if the mice are more sensitive to, this stuff. I don't know. But I guess the whole point of the experiment was, to see what the animals, preferred more. And I don't know what the odds of 5 out of 0 times. It pretty much, to me, it says that the animals can tell the difference. I mean, I've heard many stories of or similar stories where cows, they won't eat. You put the two side by side. You put non-GMO, you put GMO. They'll go and they'll sniff it, or maybe take a little bite out of it, and then they'll walk over to the non-GMO corn and eat it all down. I've heard more than one story, multiple stories about this happening. And
what's your theory on that? Do you have a theory?
I don't know. If it's honestly, what I'd like to know for sure is it just the genetic engineering that they can sense that is different, or can they sense some of the chemicals in there? Because obviously some farmers spray their non-GMO corn. Obviously we're organic, so we don't spray at all. But so I mean, it can't be just all the chemicals. I mean, and it has to be the genetic engineering in the corn that they can tell it that somehow the genetic makeup is totally different in the kernel. I don't know how they know it. And they just, like the mice, they must have a really sensitive, or is their intuition and their instinct. I can't explain it. I just know that they don't want it, because the FDA says that these things are the same thing. They say that GMOs are the same thing as non-GMOs. You could only spray the heck out of Roundup Ready crops and they won't die, but you can spray non-GMO Roundup and it won't die, and they say it's the same thing, though.
Yeah.
That's kind of that's our good U.S. regulatory system, I guess.
Oh yeah.
That's
and I wanted to, at this point, suggest also to people that they go out and they rent or buy the movie called Genetic Roulette, because it was a really phenomenal movie. It was suggested to me by Diana Reeves. Have you seen that movie?
Yeah, I have it. I've seen it. I would just like to recommend some other things too for people that are interested. Another movie. I don't know if a lot of people have Netflix these days. I don't know if it's available on Netflix. I know you can watch the full version on YouTube. Go there and watch The World According to Monsanto. It's like an hour and a half long. Watch it more than once. I've watched it probably 4 or 5 times, and I always learn something new when I watch it. You get a good history of Monsanto. I guess there's other movies, and there's another one, a documentary that came out. It's called, I believe it's called Seeds of Deception. I think that's what it's called. And there's some other ones, and you could just go on and YouTube and search these.
Oh yeah.
I can't think of what the other one is. I can't think of what they are, but there's a whole host. If you just type in GMOs, you'll come up with a whole bunch of them. There's another one is called David. It's called David versus Monsanto. It's about Piercy Smicer, a canola farmer up in Canada who had his non-GMO canola get contaminated with Monsanto's Roundup Ready canola. That's another great one to watch. And then here's another one. I'm just looking on YouTube right now. It's called The Silent Forest: The Growing Threat Genetically Engineered Trees. They want to genetically engineer everything.
Yeah, I've heard about that.
One, GMO Ticking Time Bomb. It's a whole different series. There's just so much information. Oh, here's another one. GMO Trilogy. That's another one to watch. I guess all I could say is just type these in on YouTube, and you'll be amazed at what you come up. There's some people on there that that say that GMOs are safe and there's nothing wrong with them, and millions of meals have been served since we've been on with not even as much of a headache. Well, there's no absolute way to know that, and it's pretty wrong for them to say that, because GMOs, as most people know, they're not labeled in stores. They don't label it, and obviously there's been a movement to get these labeled, these genetically engineered food ingredients labeled. Primarily, obviously, Monsanto doesn't want this stuff to be labeled in the store. They give the farmer a label, but they don't want the consumer to have a label, which it has all these benefits for the farmer because it saves the farmer time. But what are the benefits to the consumer? If there were benefits to the consumer, then Monsanto would be labeling this and advertising and promoting it to the consumer to eat it. There's no benefits to it. The nutritional value isn't there. And I guess the biggest thing is if you don't label these foods, you can't have a control group, and so you can't trace it back to the source. You can't say, okay, this group over here, they seem relatively healthy because they're eating this non-GMO food. This group over here, well, they've got all kinds of cancer and sickness and illness, and food allergies, and that's why they don't want to label it, because if you get this stuff labeled, then you're going to start tracing all this stuff back to Monsanto's food, and then lawsuits are going to happen, and then the whole thing is going to come falling down, and
sure.
And there's big money in this. Monsanto knows this. There's an enormous amount of money. There's billions of dollars in this. And, when you're making a lot of money, you want to keep it coming in.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And, one of the big problems that I see is Monsanto's pretty much bought out all of our agricultural departments at our major universities.
Yep.
I'm go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. Right here in South Dakota, everybody knows SDSU. They have a huge research grant with Monsanto right now. The president of SDSU, his name isn't coming to my mind all of a sudden, but he's on the board of directors for Monsanto, and he makes quite a bit of money just for being on there, and it's a total conflict of interest because obviously SDSU has a small organic department there, but it's the funding is actually there's not really much there to promote organic farming, and it's just a small amount of money that gets allocated to that fund, and of course everything else is for biotechnology and promoting that and doing it.
Right.
It's these universities are just totally corrupted. They're even now, Monsanto is even getting into like the FFA, the 4-H. They've donated money in my community where I live. They've already donated money to that.
Really? To 4-H?
Yeah, the 4-H.
Wow.
It looks really good. It looks like, they're helping out the rural communities. But it's so far from the truth. All that money it's a good PR image for the company. And some of that money I can't say it's 100% for certain, but some of that money that they do give out comes from farmers that have been either fined or sued, for supposedly contamination of their crops. And I don't know if anybody's been following this. They've had there's a whole group of organic farmers that have been trying to file a lawsuit against Monsanto based on Monsanto, so that way Monsanto can't come after and sue organic farmers for having our crops get contaminated with their seed. And I personally myself, I think that's a good thing, but I would kind of like to see it more the other way around, where we have the right to file a lawsuit against them because their crops are contaminating. They're trespassing onto our land, and Monsanto already has, protection for that, they've passed laws and stuff that we can't come after and sue them.
Right.
They could come after and sue any conventional farmer, but, and if they really wanted to, I suppose they could come and sue an organic farmer, but primarily won't unless you're like using their, you want to save their seed to use it to your advantage. Obviously we have no wanting to use, the Roundup Ready seed. But there's, in the real world, there's no way to control contamination. We take, as organic farmers, every precaution that we can to avoid cross-contamination, like we plant our corn later so that way it doesn't pollinate, at the same time our neighbors is pollinating, every year is different. Some years, you get a wet year and you can't, they plant their corn late, we plant our corn late, you try your best to keep this contamination from happening, and we do our very best because the corn pollen is the biggest problem for us right now. It can blow up to 3 miles away in the wind, and, you can get some contamination, and it's impossible, sometimes to keep this, that's how dangerous these GMOs are. They can actually crossbreed. Like if there's a closer plant in the wild, they can cross-pollinate with that, and then that plant becomes GMO. It's already happening. There's no way to control it.
Right.
It's like once you let the genie out of the bottle, you can't put it back.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly right. And when we start talking about Monsanto and DuPont and all those companies, what are the words that come to every American's mind? Too big to fail, right?
Yeah, too big to fail. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, the Monsanto Protection Act and all these different things that are going through the Congress to, and then Obama, he appoints Monsanto, former executives of Monsanto to his board, to his cabinet. So,
that's yeah. I guess the biggest thing I would just encourage people, just to vote with your food dollars. Go, even if all you can afford is a few items, every week that's organic, it all helps. You're supporting, local, farmers, organic and sustainable agriculture. There's so many benefits, but I just encourage people to buy organic or non-GMO. They have these little verified non-GMO labels now on some of the food packages.
Yep.
Look for the USDA organic, and just educate yourself. Just research about Monsanto and GMOs, and education is so important. Knowledge is truly power.
Hey, you're absolutely right, and I'm glad you're saying this because we're within half a minute of being done with this particular program, and we'll have you back, Paul, so you can discuss some more because I know you didn't get into everything you wanted to get into. But
there's so much stuff to discuss.
Yeah, but that was a very good closing point. But maybe to do you have something you'd like to wrap it up with? Is there a way people can reach you if they have any additional questions?
I guess if people want to reach me, I do Twitter and Facebook. I guess I prefer if people want to follow me on Twitter. If you want to follow me on Twitter, I have my Twitter account name is at John Jon. It's John D 420 man. It's all lowercase, and they can just follow me on there. I'm on Twitter quite a bit, posting tweets and doing tweeting on there and stuff. So just look up John D 420 man, and you can follow me on there and see what I'm up to. And I would say talk about organic farming and GMOs a lot. So.
Well, that's awesome. I appreciate you coming on the show tonight. That music in the background is the closing music. Again, Paul, I appreciate you coming on today, and we'll have you back on soon. So for Paul Fonder,
okay.
This is Rick Hidalgo. This has been the House of Hidalgo show on the radio, the State Radio Network. Thank you all for coming. God bless, and stay safe.